Friends, we are gathered here to celebrate one of the happiest moments in the lives of Keith and Katherine. For on this day, they will affirm before God and each of you as witnesses that they believe it is for a higher purpose that they should share life in the holy bonds of marriage. Now, before we begin today, Will Bartlett will read an excerpt from The Alchemist by Paul Coelho.
When he looked into her eyes, he learned the most important part of the language that all the world spoke. The language that everyone on earth was capable of understanding in their heart. It was love. Something older than humanity, more ancient than the desert. What the boy felt at that moment was that he was in the presence of the only woman in his life, and that with no need for words, she recognized the same thing. Because when you know the language, it's easy to understand that someone in the world awaits you. Whether it's in the middle of a desert or in some great city, and when two people encounter such, the past and the future become unimportant. There's only that moment and the incredible certainty that everything under the sun has been written by one hand only. It is the hand that evokes love and creates a twin soul for every person in the world. Without such dreams, have no meaning.
The marriage of Keith and Katherine unites their families and creates a new family. And may the blessings of God be upon Katherine and Keith this day and upon all of you who are gathered with us. Now let us listen together for the Apostle Paul as he wrote on the nature of love at its best. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. For you see, love is patient and love is kind. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered, but keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never ends. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. And now this is really a sermon for the two of you. And I had to promise that I would keep it real short, and I will. Keith and Katherine, today you stand before God and your family and friends to profess your love for and commitment to one another in marriage. The scripture that I have read speaks of love in many ways. This passage speaks of love as a relationship that is characterized by mutual trust, respect, encouragement, forgiveness, and hope. By implication, these verses describe the type of love found in marriage as a union in which God, rather than self, rules. Most of all, this passage describes the love found in marriage as a relationship that is marked by the same quality of self-giving love that God demonstrates again and again for us. Katherine and Keith, you stand here today in the belief that God has drawn you together to create that new reality that the Bible calls one flesh. That God has given you the desire to establish a home in which mutual trust, respect, encouragement, forgiveness, and hope prevail. You stand in the faith that God has filled you with the desire to place Him first in your life together. And most important, you stand in witness to your belief that God has given you a love for one another that seeks to mirror God's love for us. Keith and Katherine, you do not stand alone. As you can see, you stand in the midst of family and friends who truly wish you well. You stand in the company of fellow believers who promise to uphold you in prayer and encourage you in faith. And you stand in the presence of God himself, who promises to be with you forever, to fill you with his love, and through his Spirit, to empower you and to help you fulfill the vows that you have made to one another and will make to one another this day. May God bless and keep you always as you begin your life together as husband and wife. Amen. Usually the mother does that. You were a little bit ahead of her. Now I'm going to read for you a prayer, which is really a poem by James Dillett Freeman. And this is a poem that was written and was appreciated, first of all, by Keith and Katherine. And they have chosen for me to read it today. May your marriage bring you all the exquisite excitements a marriage should bring. And may life grant you also patience, tolerance, and understanding. And may you always need one another, not so much to fill your emptiness as to help you know your fullness. A mountain needs a valley to be complete. The valley does not make the mountain less, but more. A valley is more a valley because it has a mountain towering over it. So let it be with you. May you need one another, but not out of weakness. May you want one another, but not out of lack. May you entice one another, but not compel one another. May you embrace one another, but not encircle one another. May you succeed in all important ways with one another, but not fail in the little graces. May you look for ways to praise each other and find it possible to always say, I love you, and take no notice of small faults. If you have quarrels that push you apart, may both of you have a good sense enough to take the first step back. May you enter into the mystery, which is the awareness of one another's presence, which is no more physical than spiritual, which is warm and near when you are side by side, and warm and near when you are in separate rooms or even in distant cities. And may you have happiness, and may you find it making one another happy. May you have love, and may you find it in loving one another. And now Keith and Katherine will recite a poem to each other, not to me, but to each other, a poem by Roy Croft entitled, I Love You. First.
I love you not only for what you are, but for what I am when I am with you.
I love you not only for what you have made of yourself, but for what you're making of me.
I love you for the part of me you bring out when I am with you.
I love you for putting your hand into my heaped up heart and passing over all the foolish, weak things that you can't help dimly seeing there, and for drawing out into the light all of the beautiful belongings that no one else had looked far enough to find.
I love you because you are helping me to make of the timber of my life not a tavern, but a temple. Out of the works of my everyday, not a reproach, but a song.
I love you.
It's a good thing you've got a script.
I know. Because you have done more than any creed could have done to make me good, and more than any fate could have done to make me happy.
You've done it without a touch, without a word, without a sign. You have done it by being yourself.
And now I get to step back a little bit because Keith and Katherine are going to say their vows to one another. And so I'll ask you first, Keith, to say your vows to Katherine.
I, Keith, take you, Katherine, to be my wife, to live together in the covenant of marriage. I promise to love you, comfort you, honor and keep you in sickness and in health, and, forsaking all others, be faithful to you. To love and cherish you from this day forward. This is my solemn vow.
I, Katherine, take you, Keith, to be my husband, to live together in the covenant of marriage. I promise to love you, comfort you, honor and keep you in sickness and in health, and forsaking all others, be faithful to you, to love and cherish you from this day forward. This is my solemn vow.
And now I have a question for each of you. Will all of you who are witnessing these promises do all in your power to uphold these two persons in their marriage? And if so, you may respond, we will.
We will.
Thanks. And now we're going to have the ring ceremony, but it will be a little different because Keith and Katherine are going to say their vows to each other. But first I have these things that I would like to say. May the rings that you will see in just a moment be a sign of the vows by which this man and this woman have bound themselves to each other. For you see, rings are an outward and visible sign of an inward and spiritual grace, signifying to all the uniting of Keith and Katherine in holy marriage. May God bless the giving of these rings, that they who wear them may live in your peace. Amen. You're all nervous.
Katherine, I give you this ring as a sign of my love, a symbol of my vow, and that all that I am and with all that I have, I honor you.
Keith, I give you this ring as a sign of my love and a symbol of my vow, and with all that I am and all that I have, I honor you.
And now the bride's mother and father will read together a poem by Wilfred Arlen Peterson entitled The Art of a Good Marriage.
Happiness in marriage is not something that just happens.
A good marriage must be created. In marriage, the little things are the big things.
It is never being too old to hold hands.
It is remembering to say, I love you at least once a day.
It is never going to sleep angry.
It is at no time taking the other for granted. The courtship should not end on the honeymoon. It should continue through the years.
It is having a mutual sense of values and a common objectives.
It is standing together facing the world. It is forming a circle of love that gathers the whole family.
It is doing things for each other, not in the attitude of duty or sacrifice, but in the spirit of joy.
It is speaking words of appreciation and demonstrating gratitude in thoughtful ways.
It is not looking for perfection in each other.
It is cultivating flexibility, patience, understanding, and a sense of humor.
It is having
I think we've already done that one today.
it is having the capacity to forgive and forget.
It is giving the atmosphere in which each other can grow old.
It is a common search for the good and the beautiful.
Now I want you to face each other. Now that Keith and Katherine have given themselves to each other by solemn vows, the joining of hands and the giving and receiving of rings, it is by the authority that has been vested in me as a minister of God that I now pronounce them husband and wife. Those whom God has joined together, let no one separate. You may exchange a kiss. They've been rehearsing this. And you may take your... Sorry. And now let me ask the couple to just face the congregation. It is my happy privilege to introduce to you for the first time as husband and wife, Dr. Keith Flood and Mrs. Katherine Sweeney. Very good. And let me also say to the congregation that Katherine and Keith are welcoming you to join them in celebration at the Bridge Club downtown Raleigh.